Happy Monday morning. Welcome into another week here of Morning JOX on JOX 94.5. Conrad Van Order, Damian Mitchell here with you until 7 a.m. as we are each and every weekday. Appreciate you making us a part of your Monday as we start another work week. And unfortunately for a lot of you, maybe going in and not the highest of spirits today because it was little bit of a rough weekend for a number of different fandoms that preside here in the state of Alabama, and we'll get to all of that today. There was some good news over the weekend, though. We finally got a big decision that had been looming over not only college football but the entire world of college athletics, and so we've got a lot to talk about there. Some exciting news as we finally seem to be moving forward in the world of NIL and college athletics. So we'll dive into that here in just a matter of moments. But we do have a ton to get to from over the weekend. You had super regionals going on around SEC baseball country. You had the Birmingham Stallions in action yesterday. You had the Atlanta Braves traveling out to San Francisco. You had the softball College World Series Championship finishing up on Friday as well. So a lot for us to get to this morning, Damian. But we'll start with what we were doing yesterday because I know you and I were probably both having great weekends and everything was going great. And we went out to the Stallions game yesterday and the crowd was great. The weather was great. Everything was looking good. And then unfortunately, it was one of the sloppier performances that we've seen, especially early on from the Stallions, as they had a bit of a rough day there in Protective Stadium in the USFL Championship. So if the Stallions win this game yesterday, they're moving on to St. Louis. They're going to play in the UFL Championship with the chance for a four-peat. If they lose, the season's over. And unfortunately, Michigan, who had never beaten the Birmingham Stallions before, they chose a pretty opportune time to have their best performance against Birmingham in their history. As Michigan took a 44-29 victory yesterday as the Stallions season unfortunately comes to an end. Michigan will move on with the chance to win a championship, Damian. And I know we were both there. There were about just under 11,000 of you fans there as well. I thought it was a great crowd. I thought there were a few more than that, to be honest with you, just on how it looked. But the atmosphere was great. Everything was going well. Early on, you had Michigan able to score pretty early, get up to a 7-0 lead, but you're still feeling okay. And then some miscues started to happen for the Stallions. The officiating yesterday was questionable, to
Questionable.
say the least, but there were certainly opportunities that Birmingham left on the field yesterday as well. So, Damian, quickly, I just wanted to get your thoughts on the Stallions' performance yesterday as they fell to the Panthers 44-29.
Yeah, it's just underperforming. For the season that we've had, as inconsistent as it was because of no consistency at the quarterback position due to injury, and it felt like that Memphis game that everything was starting to head towards the right direction. But one of the things defensively started continuously being an issue. Man, we couldn't take Bryce Perkins down. We had him wrapped up on multiple occasions, couldn't bring him down. Um, and again, I think the defensive line couldn't really disrupt as much. Michigan had a great game plan. I will give them that. And I mean, just inopportune mistakes. Jamar Smith with the bad pick six right there before half, and it kind of and Skip pulled the plug. Like he kind of just, we at least had Matt Corral back. He was healthy, and even later in the game, he's just trying to will the team back, and he ends up throwing an interception, kind of just solidifying the Michigan win. But overall, just as rocky as the season was, I'm still impressed with this team because through it all, they found a way to be in this position anyway. And if the ball bounces your way here and there, this game. It's just hard to fathom that Michigan's 15 points better than you. I think in the all and be all, like it's the mistakes that Birmingham made, Michigan capitalized on them, and it was just it wasn't the best performance, but overall for the season that we had, there's a lot of teams that would have they would have folded, but Birmingham still found a way to keep fighting and find themselves in the position. It just comes to a bitter end.
Yeah, it certainly does. And again, look, there were a lot of reasons on the field that it didn't work out for Birmingham, but there were some big opportunities, there at the end of the first half, where after the pick six, Birmingham had gone down, scored a touchdown, and then when Michigan had the ball back, you thought it looked like you had a fumble that was going to be recovered by Birmingham, and it was going to set them up to potentially tie the game going into halftime. But they called it a fumble on the field. Then they go to the review and they overturn it. And again, it's one of those bang bang kind of plays. And if you had called it an incompletion on the field and didn't overturn it, I don't think anybody would have complained. But it was the fact that you had a play where, because you can literally in the stadium, if you haven't been to a Stallions game, I mean, you can hear the booth. They put it on the big screen, and you get to hear and watch them go through the review process. And for him to immediately come up there and say, yeah, I can't really tell, and then 30 seconds later decide, oh, I can't tell, so we're going to overturn it. I think that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way with the way that call went. You had a no call on hands to the face where you could hear Skip, if you were watching on the broadcast, say, you can't make my lineman look at the sky, and like, oh, so his neck just randomly snapped back. Nobody pushed his head, things like that where there were obvious, there were a couple missed what looked like pass interference calls as well. So I know that was frustrating. The officiating certainly could have been better yesterday, but a big part of why you did lose the game was because Michigan had a guy by the name of Toa Taua who ran for 85 yards and 3 touchdowns yesterday. The running game for Michigan, 39 carries for 144 yards. On the other side for Birmingham, only 61 yards rushing, granted only on 17 carries, but didn't work out very well for you there. You did have the couple of turnovers as well. So, disappointing end to the season for Birmingham. I think we can all agree, though, based on how the first 3 weeks or so of the season went, the fact that they got to this point and, like you said, just some inopportune, miscues kind of end your season for you. But they got it together better than I thought they were going to. I didn't know what we were going to get early on in the season. So the fact that they were able to get one game away from another championship, it's disappointing, but I still think you can be proud of what you accomplished this year if you're Skip Holtz and the Birmingham Stallions. So their season comes to an end, and Michigan will move on into the UFL championship game. So also going on this weekend down there on the plains of Auburn, as well as other sites across the country, you had the super regionals going on in men's college baseball. And unfortunately, a weekend to forget if you are an Auburn Tigers fan. So Auburn falls in extra innings on Friday in the first game, 7-6. Actually pretty bizarre. Again, this is just one of those weird, things that happens in sports, but you actually had a situation for Auburn where the 9th and 10th innings both came to an end the exact same way for Auburn, involving a diving catch by the Coastal second baseman and then a flip to second base to double a guy off. So you had multiple innings late where you had guys in scoring position and great plays and back-to-back innings by the Coastal second baseman saves it. If one of those gets through, it's a completely different game. So that's just, one of those bizarre circumstances where you're like, man, we really can't catch a break here. And then so on Saturday, you had to win to force a game 3 on Sunday, and Coastal Carolina gets the better end of that one as well, as they take the second game 4-1. So Auburn gets swept in their super regional. So certainly a very, very disappointing ending to the season for them. I think a lot of people were projecting them to go to Omaha, and certainly so. They had a great season. But yeah, Coastal's good, man. They know what it's like to be in these situations as well, and they weren't messing around. So I guess they were still a little fired up after being disrespected by Florida's coach last weekend, and they brought that to the Plains.
Yeah, and think about Coastal Carolina, their backs have been on the wall literally since the month of April. Like, they've kind of just been clawing, finding a way to get it done.
Yep.
And it's disappointing, especially for Auburn, to have it at home. You had a little bit of a weather delay there, and like you said, completely just bizarre plays in the 9th and 10th inning on Friday night. I was like, okay, did I see a replay? No, this just happened
the exact same thing.
Before.
Mm-hmm.
The exact same way. And then Saturday, man, you had a little bit of a lead, but then Coastal Carolina, they're late. And the crazy thing is they left a lot of men on base early on where it could have got out of hand a little bit earlier, but, kudos to Coastal Carolina for advancing. And, they're a good baseball team. They're gritty. They just find a way to get it done. It's just unfortunate for Auburn for, so much success that you've had in regular season and early on in postseason play, just for it to, again, to end the way that it did.
Yeah, so certainly a disappointing year there, because I mean they were fantastic in the regular season. The start to postseason play had gone well for the Tigers, and now they just run up against a Coastal team that's firing on all cylinders. They have won 23 games in a row now, the Chanticleers, to kind of rally here late in the season. They are 53-11 overall on the year. Pretty good.
Yeah,
They're pretty good.
they're
So
locked in.
yeah, and again, I get it. It's still, it's you look at it and you go, man, we shouldn't be losing to a school like this, and we're in the SEC. But uh, they are a very good baseball program. They know what it takes to be here. I mean, they won the College World Series not that many years ago. So yeah, definitely a tough one there for Auburn. But Coastal Carolina, they will move on and they will join a pair of SEC teams. So we went into the weekend with the potential for 3, but we were guaranteed at least 1 because you had Arkansas and Tennessee doing battle. But Arkansas, they take care of Tennessee yesterday, so they won 4-3 the first game on Saturday. And then yesterday, absolutely smoked them 11-4 over the defending champs. So Tennessee, their season comes to an end. No more Tony Vitello fireworks. You're not going to get that in Omaha, but you are going to get an Arkansas team that's gotten so close a number of times. They are now going to find themselves in Omaha yet again. And then how about the LSU Bengal Tigers? They were in a little bit of a close one with West Virginia yesterday in a winner-take-all situation. But ultimately, they come through. They prevail with a 12-5 win. So LSU, they book their ticket to Omaha as well. So a very exciting weekend if you're an Arkansas or an LSU fan. So those are the 2 SEC teams that you are going to see moving on to Omaha to compete for a national championship. And you're going to have, as it stands right now, looks like you're going to have LSU and Arkansas matched up there in their first game in Omaha. You're also going to have Coastal Carolina taking on Arizona, who Arizona got crushed by North Carolina on Friday. Well, if you were listening to 3-man front, I think it was like 18-2 at one point.
18-2.
And so they come back, they pick themselves up off the floor and win the next 2 to advance. So they're going to take on Coastal Carolina. Oregon State, they're going to take on Louisville. And then UCLA will await the winner of Duke and Murray State. That game's going to go on tonight. Has gone to a third game. So they're the final team waiting to punch their ticket to Omaha, and then that will get underway on June the 13th. So 2 opportunities for the SEC to bring back a title. Unfortunately, Auburn not going to be one of them, though.
Hate to see it.
Yeah.
But I will say, Arkansas. Yeah. I didn't know Arkansas and Tennessee was like such a heated rivalry, or if that's what you want to call it.
Yeah, well, and I think a lot of it for Arkansas fans is, I get it. It'd be frustrating to have an assistant coach, and then you see him leave and go to Tennessee, and it's like, oh, so maybe we should have kept him instead of the guy that we have. Now, again, Dave Van Horn's an excellent coach, but like the frustration of how can we not win a title, and this guy was our assistant, and now he's gone and turned Tennessee into a powerhouse.
And I see a lot of people, and this is kind of where I guess it's a generational thing that, like the showmanship in college baseball, I didn't know it was this just extreme.
Mm-hmm. Man, neither did Chipper Jones, apparently.
Yeah, like last year, everybody was so mad at Tennessee. Now every team looks like Tennessee, man. You get a big strikeout. I ain't never seen a pitcher cuss somebody up and down like Arkansas pitcher. I was like, oh, man, like they get chippy out here. But it's every team that I've seen pretty much. Like they have – I understand like baseball is a different type of game. There's all these unwritten rules and things. But I think it's geared more towards major leagues. Mm-hmm. But in college – man, those dudes, they make – if you have any sort of emotion, it is shown on the baseball field. You get a big strikeout, like Arkansas, for example. Like, dude strikes somebody out. He's talking to the assistant coaches. He's talking to the catcher. He's talking to the batter. Like, everybody's getting a piece of cuss. And I was like, hey, let's simmer down a little bit. I'm like, it's the 3rd inning. There's a long way to go in this ball game. But I think it's entertaining. I truly do think it's entertaining because, again, these guys, they're – 18, 22 years old. They're just, I mean, testosterone's through the roof. Like, they are just out there playing a game that they love, and there's a lot of passion that goes into it. But it does teeter on the brink of being like WWE or like UFC. Like, it's pretty intense.
Yeah, it's definitely gone to a different level here over the last couple of years. But, hey, that's what the kids want to do, so That's what they're going to do. But yeah, that's a little bit of a recap of what went down over the weekend. We'll get into the Braves. I mean, weekend from hell. We'll get into that a little bit later on the show. I legitimately do feel really bad if you're a Braves fan right now. I don't know how it gets worse, but I'm sure they'll find a way. But when we come back, going to take a quick break. We have a monumental decision in the world of college athletics. What does it mean if you missed the big news? Came out very conveniently late on Friday, so we're going to dive into it here on the other side. But big changes coming to the world of college athletics. We'll fill you in on the other side here on JOX 94.5. 619, welcome back in to Morning Jocks here on Jocks 94.5. Conrad and Damien with you until 7 o'clock when we hand you off to McElroy and Kublik in the morning. And something we're going to be talking about all day here on Jocks 94.5. It finally happened. We've been talking about it for so long, but that is, of course, the NCAA House settlement. You had that decision looming over a courthouse there as Judge Claudia Wilkin was certainly taking her sweet time on deciding to approve this, but approve it she did on Friday evening, so your late Friday news dump. But essentially, this is what everyone in college athletics has been preparing for. Is this now makes it so that universities will be paying players directly, and it also opens up some I guess guardrails sort of for NIL and a way to protect against that that we will get into here in just a matter of minutes. But essentially, this is the $20.5 million a year cap. That is what schools are going to have to distribute to their student athletes. And as we know, college football players are going to get the vast majority of that pot of money. And then it's going to trickle down through college, through men's basketball, women's basketball, and then you're going to get down to your baseball, softball, et cetera, your other smaller sports programs there with a lot of these universities. This is going to create, as we've discussed, maybe not necessarily in the short term for a lot of places, but certainly in the long term, I think there are going to be a lot of discussions in place about some athletic programs being cut now because the reality of it is you don't have enough money to float a lot of these programs that are, bleeding money every single year, because as we know, for a lot of these universities at the Power 4 level, they're getting profit from football, men's basketball, maybe some are getting a little bit from women's basketball, and everything else is operating at a deficit. So this is certainly a new era of college athletics, but this is what we were expecting to happen. This is what we were kind of planning for. And so this was Greg Sankey. He released a statement on Friday after this was made official. This is what he had to say about the House settlement being approved. Quote, "The approval of the House settlement agreement represents a significant milestone for the meaningful support of our student athletes and a pivotal step forward, establishing long-term sustainability for college sports, two of the Southeastern Conference's top priorities. As the journey to modernize collegiate sports continues, we remain focused on identifying and implementing innovative opportunities for our student athletes across all sports while maintaining the core values that make collegiate athletics uniquely meaningful." That is the quote from SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey as he weighed in on all of this on Friday afternoon. So just, Damien, for you, your immediate reaction. We've been waiting on this for so long. Are you glad that we're finally done with this and we can kind of move on? Do you think it's a good thing? Do you think it's a bad thing? Just kind of your immediate thoughts on all this getting approved.
Well, at first it was kind of, to me, you're starting to see the true separation of essentially the NCAA and big time college athletics. And you brought up a great point that I was thinking too, man. If you're one of these smaller programs, it's not sustainable for a long period of time, and you're gonna have to adjust kind of where you are as a program. Now these quote unquote money games, when you see the Alabamas play the Western Kentuckys of the world, they're gonna need that.
Mm-hmm.
Like now they're going to need that. All eyes on them. But I mean, really and truly, it's about to be a bigger separation between the haves and the have-nots. There's no ands, ifs, or buts about it. There are going to be programs that are going to be, like you said, everybody's essentially working in a deficit besides, essentially the Power 4. And if you're the SEC and the Big Ten, so be it. Like, hey, this is kind of the nature of doing business. Now for these MAC schools, Conference USAs of the world, you just got to figure it out. Because you're not going to be able to, you look at roster retention, and something that they're going to be discussing, and something that's discussed with the bill. Roster size, scholarships, like everything's about to take a hit. Everything's about to take a hit, and now it's, okay, if you're one of these bigger schools, how do we continue year after year after year bringing in all this money? Because now you're getting directly to the players. And, if you're a player, hey, this is amazing. Like, this is absolutely awesome because now I ain't gotta go through all these middlemen. I can go to my coach. I can go to athletics and say, hey, this is what I want. This is what I'm thinking about. And now, if you thought you had an issue with the transfer portal, it's about to get even scarier moving forward because now there's no. I mean, hasn't been any guardrails anyway. But when you talk about guys doing it strictly for the money, oh yeah, it's definitely about to be the leading candidate of why some people will start to hit the transfer portal head somewhere else.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And one of the interesting parts about this as well is so now the universities are going to be able to distribute the money directly to the players, as you now have a situation with NIL. Well, what happens with NIL and these collectives, and how does all of that work? And so now you're going to have a clearinghouse that every NIL deal that's over $600, so essentially all of them, or 99% of them, are going to have to go through this. And I thought this was really interesting. There's an On3 article about this that went up over the weekend. And so Deloitte is kind of the company that's in charge of this clearinghouse. It's called NIL Go. And based on reports from that company, they said that roughly 70% of NIL deals that were done through collectives over the past, 5, 6 years that we've had NIL, 70% of those would not be approved in this new clearinghouse format. So essentially saying 70% of these deals they looked at and went, oh, you're way overpaying these guys and you're not getting anything in return. Essentially, you're just handing out money to kids and there's nothing that goes along with it. However, he did add, or the company did add, that 90% of deals that were worked out with a company directly, like you're advertising a certain product, those would be approved. So that's kind of how this is working. They just want to make sure that if you are doing an NIL deal, you're actually promoting something. You're not just getting a bag of money to go play football, right? Because that's what a lot of it became, right? Was, okay, yeah, maybe you post a couple things on, so you're not really doing anything, right? It's just an excuse to be able to pay people more money. So that's certainly going to be interesting, and that went into effect over the weekend, if I'm not mistaken. Like that's the thing right now. Like if you sign an NIL deal right now, you have to go through this clearinghouse, and that's kind of how quickly this thing got put into place. The other big thing, of course, was the scholarship limits and how that was going to affect things. So they did agree on a plan to where they are going to phase out, I guess, some of the scholarship limits. It says the proposed new limits would be for football, you'd have 105, men and women's basketball be 15, baseball 34, soccer 28, softball 25, and volleyball would be 18. But the good news is any players that were, I guess, cut or going into this process, they are going to be able to be reinstated to their programs, and so they will have a home for this year, at least it looks like. So that's good as they kind of work through that. That one always seemed odd to me that they couldn't just agree on, yeah, how about we just take a couple years to kind of ease this thing out? Because otherwise you're going to displace a lot of kids who are walk-ons or, guys that are, maybe have an opportunity if you phase this out to earn a scholarship over the next year or two. But a lot of guys were going to be out of luck. So I'm glad that they seem to have that figured out. But a monumental moment for college athletics over the weekend with the approval of the House settlement. This also goes into the back pay, where the universities will be paying over $2 billion in restitution to former athletes that couldn't benefit off of NIL as well. So this is going to it's going to be very interesting to just kind of see how all of this ends up ultimately playing out. But at least we kind of know the direction we're heading in now, and it seems that we are finally moving along a little bit. We don't have to talk about people twirling their thumbs and waiting on a decision in a courtroom anymore. But there was an interesting deep dive into this done by ESPN over the weekend. And at the center of this report was Greg Byrne and the University of Alabama. So when we come back on the other side, I want to keep talking about the new world of college athletics and how it might be affecting Alabama specifically. Some very interesting numbers that may surprise you about where the University of Alabama is at right now and what it means for the big programs in college football. I know, Damian, we were just talking about how this is going to affect the haves and the have-nots, and a lot of the little schools are going to be getting the short end of the stick, but maybe some of the big schools are going to be struggling just as much, just in a little bit of a different way. So we'll dive into that. Still have some more things to get to from the weekend, of course, with the Atlanta Braves, Texas winning the national championship in softball as well. And we have your text, 205-834 9450. That'll get you on the courtesy GMC text line, whatever you want to chime in about from the weekend. And we will return here on the other side of Morning Jocks and Jocks 94.5. Welcome into Morning Jocks. Appreciate you starting off your week here with us on Jocks 94.5. Conrad and Damien here with you, diving into the House settlement that was finally approved and what it means for the future of college athletics. Well, one team that it's certainly going to affect, and a sport as a whole that it's going to affect, is softball. And so quickly over the weekend, Texas, they get it done on Friday. They knock off Texas Tech 10-4 in a winner-take-all Game 3 in Oklahoma City of the College World Series Finals up there. And Texas, who had been the runner-up to Oklahoma, lost in the championship series 2 of the last 3 years. They finally get back there with an opportunity to face someone other than the Sooners, and they get the job done as they scored 5 runs in the first inning to knock Najari Canaday out of the game for Texas Tech. And at that point, you kind of knew that was probably all that she wrote. So congratulations to Texas and head coach Mike White as they get their first ever national championship in softball and the first season luck, whatever you want to call it, for Texas and the SEC continues on as they have really put a stamp on the conference already early on in their tenure here. So congratulations there to the Texas Longhorns softball team for bringing home yet another trophy to the Southeastern Conference, because
It just means more.
it does just mean more. And we have an opportunity to do that in baseball as well. But when 13 teams got into the postseason and now there's only 2 left, are slim pickings right now. So we're going to need somebody to step it up there, either LSU or Arkansas in Omaha, so we can match what they did in softball. But getting back to the House settlement, I said ESPN put out an interesting report on all of this over the weekend, and a big part of it was done with an interview with Greg Byrne, the athletic director there at the University of Alabama, and he gave some interesting insights into the athletic programs there at Alabama. So I will share this first. This is one of the quotes that he gave to ESPN for the article. So this is Greg Byrne, the Alabama AD, says, quote, "I tell our coaches and our students the 3 most significant events in the history of college athletics are the NCAA's foundation in 1905, the adoption of Title IX in 1972, and all the opportunities created because of that, and now third, this House settlement." So you can tell from people that are in the know of how these things work, this is a monumental move and a monumental decision for the future of college athletics. So if you're just now joining us and you're not familiar with this, essentially what this does is it's allowing universities to directly pay student athletes, and there's now going to be a $20.5 million cap per season, or per I guess, school year, of which you can allocate those funds to student athletes. Now, the majority of that, the early estimates, and we'll see how this plays out in reality, but the early estimates on how that'll be broken down is about 75% of that money is going to go to college football, 15% to men's basketball, 5% to women's basketball, and then the last 5% is everybody else. Softball, baseball, tennis, soccer, golf, rowing, equestrian, whatever you want to throw out there. So the reality of it is not every student athlete is going to make money. They're just not. And as we know, a lot of these programs cost more money to operate than they bring into the universities. And I thought this was very interesting, and it's a very, I think it really will get the point across to some people, because we talk a lot about the haves and the have-nots, and we'll bring up a school like, well, okay, how is a school like UAB supposed to compete against a Texas A&M when it comes to NIL, right? It's not realistic. But I think you could also start to ask, how is a Texas A&M going to compete with a Texas A&M, in terms of longevity, because eventually you are going to be bleeding money at a rate where it's not going to be sustainable, or it's not going to make sense for a lot of these universities. So let's take Alabama, for example. I think, as we all know, one of the bigger athletic departments in the country. They bring in a lot of money because of football, and even them last year operated at a deficit. So Greg Byrne shared for this article the only 2 programs for Alabama that brought in money last year: football, $26.4 million in revenue, and basketball, $5.9 million. Excuse me, not revenue, profit. So football made $26.4 million, basketball $5.9 million. Every other program lost money last year for Alabama, including women's basketball, which lost $4.2 million. So when you combine that with men's basketball, you're bringing in $1.7 million, and men's basketball is essentially keeping women's basketball afloat, is kind of how you could look at that, right? So for this past fiscal year, the Alabama athletics department had 268 or $262.8 million in expenditures, and they brought in $234.8 million in revenue. So that adds up to a $28 million deficit. So the University of Alabama athletics program or department operated at a $28 million deficit for the 2024 fiscal year. Now, he does add that some of that did come with Nick Saban retiring and paying out the rest of his contract and things like that. But still, essentially the year before that, it was $15 million. So you're still operating at a deficit for now multiple years in a row. And so I think this, again, I think Alabama, and I know nobody expects them to have the same amount of money. Maybe some of you do. They don't, as Texas or Texas A&M, and they don't. That's not realistic. But I think even this, it paints a very clear picture that places like Alabama, you're going to have to cut programs eventually. And I know they don't
Yep.
want to do that, but if you want to be able to maintain, I mean, it's still a business, right? It's all about the money. That's what we all talk about. And you can't operate at a deficit forever.
Right.
And so, in order to clear these things up, it's unfortunate, but I think it's realistic to expect that even the big schools, like the Alabamas and the Texases and the Texas A&Ms, are going to have to start dropping programs eventually.
Yeah. And I mean, it's an unfortunate circumstance of just, I mean, the nature of the business that is college athletics now. I mean, when you look at, like you said, the University of Alabama, and we know this, to hear that they're operating under a deficit, how do you imagine, like the Troys, the South Alabamas of the world, and like you said, it's going to get to a point where, and you're going to have to start, you're going to start seeing some regulation around just major college football. Some teams are going to have to take a step down just to, suffice a budget. Like it's about to be interesting to see where the nature of college athletic moves in the extended future and in the near future, because I mean, if you're a MAC school, man, these Tuesday and Wednesday night games, you're gonna have to ask folks to sell out. Like, you're gonna have to just say, hey man, we'll cancel class tomorrow, bring your family, bring your brothers or sisters, everybody needs to buy a ticket, because at some point
Now
it's
you
not
see
going
why
to be
schools
sustainable.
now you see why a lot of these schools have raised ticket prices this offseason.
Yep. They have to make up ground somewhere. And I mean, it's kind of just where we are. And I mean, you can get mad at the only people we could really blame are the consumers, because we're still going to show up to the games. We're still going to pay these prices. We'll complain about them, but if the product on the field is still where it's at, the people are still going to show.
Absolutely. So yeah, again, going to be fascinating to see just kind of where all this goes over the next few years as we now kind of have a direction that we're heading in. But yeah, a lot of things still to figure out. I know some of you sending in your questions as well on the text line 205-834-9450. Feel free to do that. I know this is going to be the big topic of conversation here for the whole day on JOX 94.5. So we are going to take our final break, come back on the other side, answer your questions about the changes in college athletics, and get to the rest of what you missed over the weekend. You're listening to Morning JOX here on JOX 94.5. 6:49. Appreciate you joining us here on your Monday morning. Morning JOX, JOX 94.5. Conrad and Damien here with you until we hand you off to McElroy and Kublik in the morning. They'll be with you from 7 to 10, then three-man front from 10 to 2, and Paul will be with you from 2 to 6, just as we do each and every weekday here on JOX 94.5. Now getting to the courtesy GMC text line, answering some of your questions, some of your thoughts on this House settlement, what it means for college athletics and college football moving forward. 205-834-9450. As somebody texted in, they ask, are athletes still able to have their own NIL deals in addition to what the school will be paying them? So the answer to that is yes, but that is where this NIL clearinghouse comes into play, called NIL Go. And essentially, that is where let's say you have a mom and pop shop and they want to pay, Cam Coleman to come, promote their donut shop or whatever that they have in Auburn, that's probably going to get approved. Now, if mom and pop are offering him $10 million that they have buried under their house, that's not going to get approved. But you get what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
If it's a legitimate, hey, we want to pay you, a small sum of money to promote our product, maybe make a couple posts on social media, that kind of stuff will likely get approved. But what this is cutting down on is NIL deals that were really just pay for play. And so that's where this is going to cut down. But yes, athletes can still get NIL deals, but they have to be approved through this clearinghouse. Somebody else asked, does this mean that NIL will go away because the universities are paying athletes directly, or do we have a scenario where the universities have an allotment to pay out and then the players still have the opportunity to sign NIL on top of what they get from the universities? Yes, it is the second one. They will still have the opportunity to do the NIL stuff on the side. You're just not going to see as much of it because they are going to get a lot of that money from the schools, but you will still see that as well. There's a reason that you heard rumors, again, don't know if it's true or not, but of a guy like Cooper Flagg making $28 million last year. That money did not come from Duke. Now, some of it did, but not the majority of it. Let's see. Somebody chimes in that doesn't want to be named, but they say, how about the payments to past players? How will that be determined in terms of how far back? So it's going back from, I believe it's 2016 to 2024. So anybody in that time frame that missed out on the, I guess, NIL train, they're gonna. Yeah. Sorry, Damien. I don't know if that's.
Yeah, I don't think it applies in Division III.
I mean,
I could try.
Yeah, they might send you like $37 or something like that. But hey, every little bit counts, right? But yeah, so it's from 2016 to 2024. That's how far back they're going. So no, they're not going back and. The like Tim Tebow's of the world, people like that.
Yeah,
sorry, you missed Cam
just
Newton.
missed it.
Yeah, you missed out, unfortunately. Let's see. Somebody says college athletics aren't supposed to be a business. Well, unfortunately, they are now.
Yeah, those days are well behind us.
Yes,
it is definitely a business.
Somebody says from Arkansas, finally they're going to rein in these little money hoppers, and once again the playing field will be leveled.
Yeah, the elites will be very elite.
Yeah, they certainly will be. I don't know how level it is. Granted, I mean, I guess you could argue from the standpoint of we had more parity in college football last year than probably have in quite some time. Let's see, somebody from North Carolina, they go, are SEC baseball programs all going to offer 34 scholarships now? As far as I understand, yeah, that would be the plan, because I know baseball was one of those sports that their scholarship situation was just bad. But it was very bizarre for a long time. And so, yeah, I would imagine that would be the case, especially we know how big SEC is here, or baseball is here in SEC country. Let's see, Nick from North Birmingham, he says, so instead of recruits committing to schools now, is the appropriate term now employees? I mean, I guess if you want to call them that, you can, but they are still going to school. So I think that'll be the big one. If we ever get to a day, which I'm sure we will, but whenever that day comes of you are strictly there to play a sport and be a member of that athletic program, not to be a student there, that's when I will start calling them employees. But if you want to go ahead and do that, I suppose you can. Let's see. Bobby chimes in. He says, I hope they're already making the Jell-O shots in Omaha because Gomaha is back, Geaux. And the LSU fan base is looking to break their own record on the way to another natty.
You better believe it.
Man, that would be impressive. It was... Man, how many Jell-O shots did they have last year? I mean, it was like 70,000, wasn't it? It was something. Let's see. 68,000 Jello shots. So the previous record was 18,000, and last year it was 68,000, or in 2023, excuse me. They beat the record by 50,000 Jello shots.
That's nothing now.
Yeah, you're gonna need Mr. Raisin Kane to go back up there and hook y'all up, because that's what happened a couple years ago. Is he went and spent thousands and thousands of dollars on Jello shots. So yeah, that's gonna be fun. And then a couple of you chiming in on the Stallions, as yes, their season unfortunately came to an end yesterday against the Michigan Panthers. Someone chiming in says Stallions' loss falls on the defense. Corey Chamblin needs to be replaced. Defense hasn't been the same since Sean Chavis stepped down midseason last year. And I will say, in the first half of the year this year, defense was playing really well. Yeah. And then it's just unfortunate that as the offense started to come along, the defense started to slip a little bit. And that's why you find yourself in the situation you did yesterday. Fanboy chimes in. He says, Stallions' defense was terrible this season. So for them to be in that position with a defense like that, I was perfectly fine with it. Yeah. Let's see. Someone says, we all know there's still going to be a backdoor NIL deals going on where alumni are attempting to get an edge for the university. Maybe so. Let's see. What is the name of the bar that sells the Jello shots? That would be Rocco's up there in Omaha. So appreciate you all chiming in there on the courtesy text line. We'll be back tomorrow, but coming up next, McElroy and Kublik in the morning. I imagine they're going to spend a lot more time on this house settlement and what it means for the future of college athletics. But hey, at least we finally have a decision. So we'll be back with you tomorrow at 6 a.m. McElroy and Kublik in the morning. They're up